If you really want to understand where a country is headed, sometimes all you have to do is look at a single day's news. And that's exactly what we're doing today with India. We're looking at a nation that's basically performing a high wire act, juggling a massive economic transformation at home while playing a really tricky game on the global stage. So how are they pulling it off? Let's get into it. And this really gets to the heart of the matter, right? How does any country, especially one as big and complex as India, balance its own wallet, the domestic stuff that hits you and me, with its place in the world? It's this constant push and pull between internal priorities and external pressures. It's a fascinating puzzle, and today we're going to try and put some of those pieces together. All right, so first, let's look inward. We have to start with this huge shakeup that just landed right in the middle of the Indian economy. I'm talking about a major update to India's goods and services tax, the GST. Think of it as GST 2.0. This is actually the biggest tax reform the country has seen in almost a decade. And look, this isn't some boring policy paper stuff. This is about fundamentally rewiring the price tags on pretty much everything, from the clothes you buy to the car you might be saving up for. So let's break this down. The government is getting really specific here. If you're buying everyday, budget-friendly clothes, the tax is dropping to just 5%. But if you're splurging on premium goods or, say, wedding items, that tax is jumping up to 18%. Now, the really big news is cars. By setting these new, clear tax rates and, crucially, capping the tax on luxury cars at 40%, they're basically clearing the runway for some major price cuts. The whole point? To get people out there spending, especially with the big festive season right around the corner. But, and there's always a but, isn't there? All of these tax cuts, well, they come with a massive price tag for the government itself. We're talking an estimated 1 trillion rupee drop in revenue. That is a huge number to just let go of. So you've got to be asking, why isn't anyone in the government freaking out? Well, it's because this is a massive, calculated gamble. The bet is that by putting more money back in people's pockets through lower prices, you're going to ignite a huge surge in consumer spending. Combine that with some income tax relief they'd already rolled out, and the hope is that the economic boost will more than make up for that initial loss. It's a classic bet on the consumer. And it seems like that confidence might not be so crazy after all. Let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture of India's economy. The global ratings agency Fitch just went and upgraded India's GDP growth forecast for fiscal year 2026. And not just by a little. They bumped it up to a super strong 6.9%. This isn't just a random number. It's a huge vote of confidence, and it comes right after a really powerful quarter that was driven mostly by the services sector. The engine is definitely humming. And just to put that 6.9% number in perspective for you, the forecast for the entire global economy is a pretty sluggish 2.4%. So India is projected to grow at nearly 3 times that rate. Fitch is so bullish, they're actually expecting the country to stay above 6% growth all the way through 2028. That's pretty remarkable. Okay, so the domestic scene is strong, but how does that connect to India's role in the world? Because as we're about to see, things are just as busy on the global stage. One of the biggest moves is happening with the United States. For a little while now, things have been kind of tense, There was friction over tariffs, over India buying Russian oil, all that stuff. But suddenly, it looks like we're seeing a major thaw. The big news is that trade talks are officially back on. And it's not just the policy, it's the tone. It is completely changed. You've got President Trump and Prime Minister Modi calling each other close friends. Modi is talking about unlocking the limitless potential of the partnership. And it's not just talk. An Indian delegation is literally heading to Washington next week. When you see that kind of coordinated messaging, it signals a really significant strategic shift. But of course, it's never just about one country. India is constantly juggling its entire neighborhood. For example, temporarily having to suspend flights to Nepal because of some political unrest over there. At the same time, it's flexing its muscles on the global stage, like at the UN Human Rights Council, where it very firmly told Switzerland its comments were ill-informed. So it's a constant multi-front effort. So let's bring these two stories together. On one side, you have this booming domestic economy. On the other, you have this incredibly complex web of global relationships. And this is where that real balancing act, that high wire act, comes into play. And honestly, there is no better example of this balancing act than India's whole approach to cryptocurrency. This is the big question every government is wrestling with, right? Do you jump in and try to regulate this brand new, wild technology, or do you hang back and see what happens? India is very clearly choosing caution. They're pointing to systemic risk, which is basically the fear that a crypto crash could take down the whole financial system, and saying, whoa, let's pump the brakes. So for now, they're avoiding some big comprehensive law. They're choosing a more measured, selective approach instead of just rushing something out. It's a clear choice: stability over speed. And if you want to see exactly how global events hit the domestic economy in real time, just look at the Indian rupee. You have these mixed signals coming out of the US, the same country that's restarting trade talks. Well, that creates uncertainty for investors. That uncertainty makes the rupee bounce all over the place. And if those trade talks go south, the currency could be in for some real trouble. It's a straight line from a meeting in Washington, D.C. to the value of the money in a wallet in Mumbai. And that brings us right back to where we started. In just one day's news, you can see a nation firing on all its domestic cylinders with some really bold reforms, while at the very same time, it's fine-tuning its most critical relationships around the world. So it leaves us with this one giant question. In the end, what's going to define India's next chapter? Will it be that powerful internal economic engine, or will it be the web of strategic partnerships it's building on the global stage?